Hello, welcome back to chapter 6 this week, week 5 of the book group, because we had a couple of chapters together in the earlier stages. So this week, chapter 6 is a fresh start, and there is so much in this chapter about how we can have fresh thinking available in any moment. But for this video, I thought I'd focus on the aspect of forgiveness that he talks about. So that's in the section called The Myth of Sadder but Wiser, on page 102, if you're following along. And he talks about sort of 3 ways he's seen forgiveness over his time. That's Michael, by the way. We're reading Michael Neal's The Space Within. So the first version, if you like, of forgiveness that he heard was where you say to somebody, well, who are you actually hurting in this experience of not forgiving somebody? Are you actually hurting them, or are you hurting yourself more? You know, by carrying that grudge, who's actually suffering here? The metaphor he used was hanging on to a grudge was like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die, which is kind of true. But he said he realised that for him and for many other people it didn't work, which makes sense, because if that thinking that says, I can't forgive them, is based on the belief that somehow I need to hold on to this story, I need to hold on to this experience, so that if they or somebody else tries to do this to me again, I'm like ready for it. I'm prepared, I've got a strategy to deal with it, I know to ward them off at the first pass, you know, all that kind of thinking. So for as long as the mind's thinking that its current toolbox is all it's got to deal with any situation that comes up that might lead to this potential bad situation again, then no, it's not going to make sense to let go of a grudge, because it looks like that's useful to protect us in the future. Now that's not actually true, which I guess is where Michael ultimately points us to, but that is how it looks sometimes. That is what leads to that behaviour of not letting go of a grudge. So then he said he heard something he liked even more, which was the notion that in order to forgive, you have to have already judged. So, and I liked how he said, I already have to think I know better than you before it even occurs to me to forgive you. So in talking about forgiveness, I've kind of got to be a jerk twice. First judgmental, then arrogant. So basically pointing to the fact that if I think you need to forgive me, it's because I think I'm right and you're wrong. And that's being held as an absolute, that there is nothing else to see in this, that there is no possibility that I could not necessarily be wrong, but there could be a different way of seeing what I'm seeing, or equally that that other person could be experiencing something in a completely different way. It holds this paradigm of me and you and right and wrong, and because you're wrong and therefore I'm better than you, hence the judgmental, you now need to either say sorry to me, or if you're not going to do that, I have to decide if I'm going to forgive you or not. And that's the arrogance part, you know, are you worthy of my forgiveness almost? So that's the second, sort of second depth, if you like, of forgiveness that he started to explore. And then the third version he heard from George Pransky, who said, well, it seems to me that true forgiveness is when you can feel the same way about the person as you did before anything ever happened. So when you can feel the same way about the person as you did before anything ever happened. And that sometimes can sound like completely ridiculous, but think about that for yourself. Think about when you've had a relationship with somebody or an experience with somebody, and yet whatever it is that caused a problem or caused an issue has completely disappeared, no grudges held at all, and back into the fullness of the relationship. So I know for me, when that's happened, it's been through a complete collapse of whatever the ideas were that were holding that sense of me and them and how I should be and how they should be. So sometimes that was based on societal constructs. So that person, because of that role they're supposedly playing in my life, should behave in that way. And in the belief of all that, it looked like they were wrong. In the collapse of that, there was no need for any forgiveness, it was just, well, I was judging them based on this whole made up societal construct, so what's to forgive? Or equally, other times when it's collapsed, it's been from the genuine seeing of the innocence of their behaviour based on the fact it's only ever coming from what looks real to them at the time. So genuinely seeing that no other behaviour could have happened, and that whatever that behaviour was just made complete sense. Whether it was a momentary confusion for them, or whether it was over a long period of time because it was a sustained story that kept playing out for them or for me, then in seeing that that's all that's ever happening, there's no ideas of forgiveness then, because the whole system has collapsed. And that's that return that George is talking about, where you then don't need to forgive. There's not even an idea of, I have to forgive you. What's to forgive? You were just doing what made sense, and I was doing what made sense, and yeah, nothing else is ever happening. So then even, forgiveness is just completely off the table then. And you're back into that space of love and connection that we're all really looking for. So I'd love to know what you think, what you've noticed in your own experience. Maybe you've tried all three or seen all three of those in action. You can't really try the third one. It's a spontaneous thing that just arises by itself. But if it has for you, then I'd love to know. I'd love to hear your experience of that. Take good care and see you next week.